Welcome back. Now, as I mentioned in the earlier video, that the plants have two systems, that is the root system and the shoot system. Above the ground it is called as shoot system, and under the ground the part is called as root system. Now, when we talk about the root system, now this root system develops from radicle of the embryo. Now, how do we understand? You or all of us eat the seeds of different plants, whether it is monocot or dicot plants. Observe this seed. This is a seed of bean, means it is a bean seed. When we soak the seed in water, and after that when you open, means remove the seed coat first of all, and then the two cotyledons are separated. In between you will find the embryonal axis. And when we keep this wet seed 2-3 days in the house, or otherwise you can say tied into a wet cloth, when it is kept, you will find white thread like structure coming out from the seed coat or outside the seed coat. That is actually called as the radicle, which later on will develop into the root. So when we open the separate both the cotyledon, in between is the embryonal axis. The one which is going downward, or the longer one first, radicle emerges first, that is called as radicle. And the part of the embryonal axis which is in contact with the two cotyledons, that is called as, you can say, point of contact between the embryo and the cotyledon. Over here it is labeled as what? Cotyledon stalk. And above that is the part which is going to become, or which is going to come out of the ground surface when it is sown into the soil. It is called as plumule, which gives rise to the shoot. Now, in between this plumule and the stalk over here, cotyledon stalk, there is a small part which is called as epicotyle. Likewise, between the radicle and the cotyledon stalk is a part which is called as hypocotyle. During germination, what happens in the soil? If this hypocotyle is going to elongate or become longer faster than the epicotyle, that in that case what happens? The root, that is the radical part, is going to emerge deeper inside the soil, and because of the elongation, or the hypocotyle has become longer faster because of the division or the growth. So as a result of that, what happens? The whole cotyledon, both the cotyledons are pushed outside the ground. And in some plants or some seeds, you will find that epicotyle elongates faster than the earlier than the hypocotyle. So in that case, what happens? The seed remains inside the soil. Both the cotyledons remain inside the soil. Only what is going to emerge out of the ground is the shoot part. That is over here above the embryo. This is the dicot seed, and the other one over here is the monocot seed, and this is example a maize seed. The part that you can see here, lower part here, radicle, and over here is the plumule. Radicle has to develop into root, and the plumule has to develop into shoot. Just see into this flow chart. Embryo has two parts, cotyledon and embryonal axis. Cotyledon, two cotyledons as I shown over here. In between these two cotyledon is present the embryonal axis, which has essential all these parts. In the center over here, what I said, point of attachment of cotyledon and the embryo. And at the extreme lower part over here is the radicle. Extreme upper part is the plumule, and in between plumule and the point of attachment is the epicotyle, and in between the radicle and the point of attachment is the hypocotyle. So that means what? That the root, when the seed germinates, at that time what happens? The radicle of the embryo, it elongates, becomes longer, and then grows deep into the soil, and that form the root, and that root, initial root that is formed, is called as primary root. Later on, this primary root develops branches which are going to be forming later on as secondary root, tertiary root, and later on it is going to terminate into very fine hair like structure which is called as root hairs. And these root hairs are actually unicellular, made up of only one cell. Only thing, it has become elongated in the shape of a hair like structure. These primary root, as I said here, they bear lateral roots which are, you can call as what, branches of the roots. And therefore later on, whatever you can see in this figure, the main root, the radical develops into the main root that goes or penetrates downward, and that is called as primary root. Now from primary root, when branches, lateral branches come out, they will be called as secondary root. Again from the secondary root, when further branches come out, they can be called as tertiary root, and later on finally they will terminate into root hairs. Now these roots, they are going away from the light and going towards the water and towards the gravitational force or gravitational pull. So you have studied in your earlier class about phototropism, geotropism and hydrotropism. So if suppose that the root is going towards the gravity and towards the water, then it will be called as positively geotropic and hydrotropic. Means positively geotropic and positively hydrotropic. Whereas when we talk about the phototropism, the root is negatively phototropic. And here in the structure of the root, they do not have, or they do not bear seed. They do not bear leaves. They do not bear leaves, neither they have nodes or internode, and even they do not bear buds which is going to develop into either branch or a flower, because this is, we are talking about the underground part. Now these root system may be of three different types, or they can be, you can say, classified into three types. One is called as what? Taproot system. Second one is fibrous root system, and the third one is adventitious root system. Now, what is the difference between all the three different types of root system? As I said here about the figure, I explained here, as to primary root, it develops from the radical, and from primary root later on secondary root, from secondary root further tertiary root, later on it terminates into very fine hair like structure which are called as root hairs. So because over here main root is present, and so this root system is called as taproot system. In case of fibrous root, what happens? The main root or the primary root forms, it develops from the radical as in the case of first one. But after some time, what happens? It dies. After some time it dies. That means what? The primary root in case of fibrous root is having very short lifespan. Means it is having very short lifespan, and so from the base of the stem, more than one, or you can say many roots develop. Now in this, if you see, you cannot find the main root over here. All the roots that develop from the base of the stem here, they almost look alike. So they can be considered as primary roots over here, and when the branches are going to develop, they can be called as secondary, tertiary, and later on terminate into root hairs. That means what? Fibrous root also develop from the radical, but they live for a short period, and after that from the base of the stem some roots develop, and these roots form a fiber like structure. So you can see over here in the figure, this is called as what? Fibrous root. Whereas the third one, adventitious root, this is again different from the first two. How it is different? Because this does not develop from radical. Adventitious root, they do not develop from the radical, they develop from some other part of the plant. but not from the radical. Like for example the nodes, from the nodes or from the leaves or from the hypocotyl. What happens when the root develop? They are going to develop, or they are called as over here as adventitious root over here. Check this point. Such roots may develop from hypocotyl, stem or the leaf parts. You have studied about bryophyllum. From the notch present in the margin of the leaf, what happens? Buds develop, and when you just separate that bud from the leaf and put it into the wet soil, it will be able to grow into a new plant. Let us see the example for all three here. Example of taproot system over here: mustard, mango, tomato, brinjal, carrot, radish, etc. And then along with this, so many you can go on adding. It will be a very big list. Then coming to the fibrous root. In case of rice, wheat, maize, bajra, sugarcane, all these are in fact monocot. Over here, in case of the fibrous root, they are what? Present in case, or they are formed in monocot plants. Whereas in case of the first one, taproot, they are found in dicot plants. The first one over here, what I discussed, mustard, all these are there. They are found in dicot plants, whereas the fibrous root is found in case of monocot plants. When we talk about the third one, that is the adventitious root, as I said earlier, that they do not develop from the radical, but they develop from some other part other than radical. And examples are grasses, monstera, banyan tree, wheat, sugarcane and pandanus. Is it right? Grass, monstera, then banyan tree, wheat, sugarcane, pandanus, etc. Some more differences are over here. As to what are the differences between the three root system: taproot, fibrous root and adventitious root system. As I mentioned earlier, that taproot system develops from the radical, and then it is always underground. It is found always under the ground. And even in case of fibrous root, this also develops from the radical and always it is found under the ground. Whereas what happens in case of adventitious root, they develop from any other part other than radical, and they may be found above the ground also. They are found inside the ground but above the ground also, which can be called as aerial or subaerial. Then in case of taproot, third point over here, it consists of a single primary or main root. Whereas in case of fibrous root, what happens? The primary root, as we discussed earlier, taproot system or the main root is short-lived. After that it dies, and many roots they develop from the base of the stem. And in case of the adventitious root, what happens? The primary root is totally absent because this has not developed from the radical. And this consists of a cluster of roots over here. Consists of roots forming a cluster. Means what? A group of roots are there. And this is best you must have seen in case of the grasses, the lawn grass. The fourth point, in case of taproot system over here, the primary root, they produce later on the branches which develop into secondary, tertiary, and then later on quaternary root you can say, and then finally terminate into root hairs. Whereas in case of fibrous root, if let us say if we consider all the roots that have developed after the main root died, if you consider that as the main root, then further branches come out from them, and these main roots, they are going to branch, which are going to be thin and thread like. And when we talk about the adventitious root, they may be thick, thin or otherwise variously modified into various shape and size. The next point over here, in case of taproot system, they may be surface or deep feeder. Means what? Over here the main root can go deep into the soil. So that means it is called as deep feeder. And when it goes deep inside means what? Later on the branches are going to develop deep inside, as a result of which it is helping the plant to fix properly, plus also the branches which are going to develop later, they are going to help the plant in absorption. So that's why over here it may be surface or deep feeder, the deep feeder being the usual feature. Usual means what? Normally this is found over here, that they are able to penetrate deep into the soil, whereas when we talk about the fibrous root system, these roots do not penetrate deep into the soil, they are surface feeders. And likewise for the adventitious root also, they are surface feeder. The last point in case of taproot system, that it is commonly found in dicot plant, fibrous root found in monocot, but in case of adventitious they are found in both dicot and also in case of monocot root. Now let us see another topic, which is the region of the root. Means at the tip of the root different regions are found, and they all are responsible, or how they are responsible we have to understand over here, for the linear growth and also for absorption of water and mineral salt when they spread inside the soil. Three main region we will discuss here. Three main region, just note down in the figure. The first one, or at the lowermost end, that is the region of meristematic activity, region of elongation, and the region of maturation. Now over here the root cap is present, or root cap is covering the region of meristematic activity. If you remember, you must have studied in your 9th class about plant tissues. In the next chapter we will be discussing about the internal structure, in which we will be discussing about the plant tissues. And you have studied, if you remember, meristematic tissues are the young tissues. They are actively growing tissues. Means what? Over here their cell wall is not thickened, and as a result of that they have protoplasm present in their cell, and so they can divide actively, and as a result of their division they go on adding number of cells at the tip over here. So meristematic cells present over here at the tip makes it region of meristematic activity, and because of addition of more cells, what happens? The root is going to grow or elongate, become longer in size, and just above that root region of meristematic activity is located the region of elongation. See, after the cells have divided, number of cells have been added at the tip here. After some time, what will happen? They have to turn into permanent. They are going to become older, and as a result of that, what will happen? They are going to become longer, and that's why here, if they are going to become longer, that means what? The root is going to become longer in lengthwise. The root is going to elongate lengthwise, and that is why the term has been, the region has been named here as region of elongation. And this region actually is responsible for the growth of the root lengthwise. And when the part of the root has already elongated, it has become permanent, at that time what happens? Root hair start developing. As a result of which, what is going to happen? The root hairs, as a result of that, it will be helping the plant in the absorption of water and mineral salt. They will be helping in the absorption of water and mineral salt. And so this region is also called as region of root hair. This region can also be called as region of root hair. It is called as region of maturation, but it can also be called as region of root hair, or otherwise root hair region. Once again I am repeating, what happens? Three main regions are there. Region of meristematic activity. In this, what happens? The cells which are present, they are able to divide actively because they are having protoplasm, dense protoplasm, and their cell wall is thin, and as a result of that they can divide faster. they add number of cells, as a result of which later on these are going to become little older and then get elongated, as a result of which the root grows lengthwise. The root elongates lengthwise and then reaches, or otherwise you can say becomes little older and then comes to the permanent stage. And that time what happens, the very fine root hairs they develop, which spread into the soil and help in the absorption of water and mineral salt. As a result of which this third region is called as what? Region of maturation, but this can also be called as region of root hair. And the root cap that is present here above the region of meristematic activity, this is for protection purpose, so that when the root is moving or growing in between the soil particles, the tip of the root should not be damaged. So in order to give it protection, root cap is present here. Now this root cap will not be or is not similar in all the plants. In some plant it may be multi-layered. Like very good example is there in case of the pandanus. Earlier I have mentioned here about pandanus. So in this case what happens, the root cap is multi-layered, so that when it moves under the ground, what happens, it is going to prevent getting damaged. And over here let us see the normal function of root. We will be discussing about the function of root. One is normal function here, and then later on I will discuss about the modified function. Actually they are the root, but they do some other function of storage, support, etc. So that I will talk in the next video. But here normal function, they first of all fix the plant into the soil. They fix the plant firmly in the soil, and when they move or otherwise penetrate deep inside the soil, means what, they will be capable of absorbing water and mineral salt from the soil. And when they move inside here, what happens, when they move inside here, they come in contact with some soil organisms like fungi and other microorganisms, which associate with these roots. Means the organism like fungi or otherwise some bacteria, they come in association with the root and they help in providing the root with the nutrient, like for example nitrogen, phosphorus. Fungi is there, it forms mycorrhiza. And it absorbs the phosphorus and provides to the plant. Whereas in case of the nitrogen fixing bacteria like rhizobium, it provides nitrogen, that is by fixing the atmospheric nitrogen into nitrate and nitrate. That's why this last point over here, interact with the soil organism like fungi and microorganism. And at the tip of the root over here, they produce or they are able to synthesize plant growth regulators. In short, it is called as PGR, which is actually referring to the plant hormones. You have studied in your earlier class about plant hormones. 5 of them were there. You have studied auxin, cytokinin, gibberellin, ethylene and abscisic acid. The first 3 are called as plant growth promoters, and ethylene and abscisic acid are called as plant growth inhibitors. So these hormones or otherwise plant growth regulators are synthesized at the tip of the root and also at the tip of the shoot. So that was about the normal function of root. Thank you.